Hey, welcome back to our 5 day series where we have been discussing the recent article published by Harvard Magazine titled The Risks of Homeschooling. We're here with homeschool mom and expert Alison Slatter. We have taken a look at what and who is behind this article, the response to it, how far reaching it really is, and the lack of evidence backing it up. Today, we're going to wrap up the series by addressing what you can do as homeschool families about this rising opposition. We want to give you some practical things and also to encourage you that this is a battle we are all in together, and standing on the sidelines won't cut it. So, Alison, will you talk to the moms and dads that are in the trenches every day, loving on, teaching, and raising up their children? The parents whose eyes have been opened to the fact that we have opposition in what we do, and they want to get involved. They want to stand for what is good. To the parents who choose to homeschool because they want what is best for their children and want to ensure that our freedoms carry into the next generation. So, Alison, what can we as homeschool families do about this rising opposition?
Well, the number one thing is don't get complacent. The absolute the absolute worst enemy of everything is saying, "Oh, homeschooling's safe. We're fine.
Mm-hmm.
It'll always be an option that's there for me." No,
No,
actually, it will not be.
and it
Um,
hasn't always been.
and it hasn't always been. That's absolutely right. And we can look at other nations throughout the world to see where that's not a given right in other countries.
Mhm.
So we're unique in that we were given from the beginning with our founders through natural law and God's law that very fundamental right. But you know what? As soon as you start shifting the ideas of the philosophy of the laws we've talked about before, so long as you start going away from those ideas and starting with a more of a statist approach, it's going to leave because statism has absolutely no room for homeschooling and certainly no room for independent homeschooling. Now, they might have room for, government controlled homeschooling, but they're not going to have any room for what typically most of us do today, which
Right.
is decide a curriculum for ourselves and decide the
Mhm.
best approach and try to lead our children as we see fit.
Yeah.
There's no room for that in statism, none whatsoever. So that's the first thing. Please don't get
Don't
complacent.
get complacent.
Please
Okay.
don't. The next one is to make sure you understand where our rights come from. What are the origins of our
Mhm.
rights? We actually I have a whole talk with the Homeschool University that IHE put out, which is supposed to help out new homeschool families understand more about what this thing is, what does it look like, what are our responsibilities, that sort of thing. And I actually did a portion on basically homeschool civics of where do our rights come from, where do they emanate
Oh.
from, and they specifically come from the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. They each have given us, uh, we call them the two pillars of homeschool freedom. And one pillar is significantly stronger than the other. And that's just a fact. And the reality is that even if you're an atheist homeschooler, you need to back the religious rights of your Christian homeschoolers because we essentially are standing in line. We have the strongest, most durable pillar upon which for our homeschool freedoms. The minute that gets knocked out, then you're next. So that's where atheists and religious homeschoolers really need to come together and fight for that because that's where they're going to try to tear us apart. They're going to try to say, "Oh, look at those Christians," and draw you away so that they can then attack the weakest column, which is
Oh.
parental rights. And
That's so
that's
good.
kind
So unite. We need to be united. We need to be united for the common purpose of homeschool freedom.
absolutely.
That's really good.
I mean, and as Christian homeschoolers, we need to be okay with, and not just okay with, but defend atheist homeschoolers, Hindu homeschoolers, Muslim, Jewish. We need to support them as well. But we all need to make sure that we're upholding the standards as found as Yoder versus Wisconsin, which means that children need to be literate and self-sufficient. So our education of our children need to result in literate and self-sufficient children. That needs to be, and we all need to hold ourselves up to that level at a bare minimum. But the vast majority of homeschoolers I know go well beyond all of that. And so that's another thing that we can do as homeschoolers is faithfully follow the laws of our homeschool states and what they say, and do it with integrity. Don't try to get it skirt around and kind of,
Mm.
no, follow it with faithfulness. So that's something
So
else I would
good.
say. I mean, please follow the law.
Awesome.
Um,
And
do
know the
what do
law.
those
Know the law. In order
know
to
the
follow
law.
it, you need to know it.
You need to understand where this is coming from because if you don't understand it, somebody can spin
Right.
you in line and you're willing to give up your rights in the process. And that's not good either. Um, So we now have a golden opportunity to make sure we're introducing this to all these new homeschool families that have that were forced home due to the quarantine. They're now seeing that their children are radically transforming, and it seems that school might be the triggering factor for some of the issues that they're having. And they may be looking at homeschooling. Well, this is the time that we need to learn about what it is that it means to homeschooling, where we get that from, and why we need to fight for it. Because they may not understand all that, and we need to be there with a ready defense so that they can understand it too. And so we also have to remember that there really are indeed people who are working every single day to remove our rights,
Right.
and they're paid
Right.
for it. They get paid for it. Whereas you, myself, my other colleagues all around the nation, we do it 100% free. We do it because we believe in homeschooling. We
Right.
do it because we love the fact that our children get a quality education that only up until now, really and truly, only princes got. But
Right.
we're able to offer this quality education at a fraction of the rate than we can in some of these really, really highbrow Ivy
Right.
League kind of prep schools. But
I
we're able to
often
offer
think
it.
as a previous public school teacher, I think if you were to say what is the best education for kids, like even in a public school model, right? Small class size, one-on-one instruction, instruction tailored to the student and their, how they learn, what they're geared for. Any public school teacher would say those are some of the things that would make an excellent education. And we as homeschool parents can provide all of those things to a level they could
Mhm.
never even imagine providing them. So like you said, we are giving our children the education of a prince. I love that.
Yeah, well, and the reason I think of this, so my husband's an immigrant from England, and so we're also very familiar with the English school system. And I
Interesting.
ended up watching a fascinating program on the boarding school in England named Harrow. And so I believe Winston Churchill went there.
Mm.
Yeats, the famous poet, he went there. So this school, it has been around for hundreds, literally at least 500 years. Okay, this is not a flash in the pan school. It is a
Right.
very good name. I mean, and they spend something like 20 to, and it doesn't even include their school clothes, something like 25 to 30,000 pounds, which add a third more to that to make it equivalent to
Wow.
to American money. Okay, I mean, they
Wow.
spend a fortune on one child's education, and and so I talked to my husband. I was like, "Oh, I'd love for the kids." And he's like, "Well, what do they have? What does this Harrow have that we're not giving them?" I'm like, "What do you like about it?" I was like, "Well, I like the the solid classical education they're getting." He's like,
You can do
"That
that.
we're doing it." Okay, I like the small class sizes.
Can't get much smaller.
I like the fact that they're on a team and there's exclusivity and there's this camaraderie between you. He goes,
That's
they're on the homeschool soccer team. What do you want?
oh my
Okay.
goodness.
And so we went down the line, and other than experiencing a new culture and in a new country,
Right.
I had everything here under the roof of my home that Harrow gives to their kids for far more. And on top of it, they have to be disconnected with their parents to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say your children get the love and the relationship with the people that know them and love them the most.
Although I did get a
Sounds like a
really
win-win.
Well, although I did get a really good discipline tip from it. So when a kid misbehaves, they would write it. They'd have to write out. They called writing lines. And if you really misbehaved, they would make you switch colors between letters.
Oh my
So it
goodness.
would take you really long time to write those sentences.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
when we would have attitude problems, that's what we would do. And if you really made me mad, you'd have to do rainbow lines.
Rainbow lines.
I
Oh
mean, six
goodness.
different colors.
Oh,
But it was effective.
yeah.
But
Tips
these
from a boarding school.
Right, exactly. Hey, man, take all the help I can get some days. Um,
Oh, funny.
but this was something that I realized is that really and truly we're able to offer the kind of education that people spend so much for and
Right.
sacrifice a tremendous amount to get. Yet
Right.
we're able to do it.
Absolutely.
And
So
we're able to
how else can parents help defend? So I think what I hear you saying is yes, we're giving them the best education. So what homeschool parents tend to do is they doubt that. And
right.
what you can do to help defend and stand by your homeschool freedoms is stop doubting that what you're doing is good. I will tell you what you're doing is incredible. It's the best thing you could be doing for your children. It is the best education you can be giving them. So stop doubting yourself so that you are strengthened to defend your freedoms because you are convicted and know that what you are doing is incredible.
And I tell you, becoming a dyslexia tutor helped me much greater appreciate the work that I do at home because
Mm,
I work with kids who are my children's ages and are light years behind where my kids
right.
are. And, while my kids are certainly not the sharpest and the brightest and on top of it all of every child you could possibly imagine, the reality is given some of the difficulties they have with dyslexia and dysgraphia and that sort of thing that they've got going on, they're far ahead of their government school counterparts who have the same problems.
Hmm.
And that really made me go, oh,
Right. Right.
stop complaining. Stop
Absolutely.
worrying. Stop letting the devil speak those kind of lies into your
Right.
head because they aren't true.
Right. And he
Um,
does it to shut us up. He does it to
absolutely.
shut us up. So what other
Absolutely.
things do you have on your list of how parents that are watching this right now can actively get involved?
Okay. Another thing is don't trust the government nearly so much. I'm a former government employee. I mean, don't trust the government. The government
Uh,
really is not your friend. They're not giving you money because they want to be nice.
mm,
They're giving you money because they want to control. And that's
good.
really what it boils
True.
down to. And I don't, again, this isn't about HSLD or it's not HSAs or ESAs or any of those things. It's not about any of those things. This, but it's in general. It's not just with homeschooling. Let's look what's going on in the quarantine. You have people trying to attend a drive-in church. They don't even get out of their cars, and
Right.
they're getting ticketed by the government. You have a woman who's trying to feed her children, opening up her hair salon, and is thrown in jail. You
Right.
have, I mean, it's absurd. You have a mother who's allowing her daughter to go on a play date right next door, and you have the officer showing up at her door, demanding her name and her middle name.
Yeah. And these are not because they care about your health. I will let you know. This
No,
is not because they care about your health.
no, this is about control. And
Absolutely.
and the so, there's a lot of little ways where, the government is not really there to be your friend. So to think that you can have a government worker come in, visit your child once a year and all is well, you don't think the abusers don't know how to get around that? Of
Right.
course they do. But then what ends up happening is we open ourselves up to a lot more inquiry. As you pointed out in one of the other videos, what happens if your sink's full of dirty dishes because you just had lunch?
Right. Right.
What happens if the baby had an accident just before they walk in the door, so there's a bruise?
Right.
Which babies fall. They do. They all do. And it's not because we're a bad parent. It's not because it's just life.
Right.
What
Right.
happens when we open ourselves up to that? It's not a good idea to be trusting the government with
So
something as
you're
important
saying
as our
so
children.
this is saying so be cautious. Just be cautious and be alert of what's behind this. That's a
Yes.
really good tip. So what other things do you have for us to help parents who really want to be involved?
Connect with your state organization. Many states have excellent organizations that really truly are involved in protecting your rights, and you need to know what's going on with them. And maybe not just connect with them, maybe you need to volunteer with them too. You probably have skills that they desperately need. Like for me, I'm like, well, what good am I? I'm just a homeschool mom. What do I got? But apparently, they really like me on some of the legislative stuff. So with that, they've put me to work, and that's what I do. And I find other people that also have those interests that can work with me and help me as well.
Right.
It's never a one-man show in the homeschool world, and if you don't know that by now,
No.
well, you've not been in it long enough then.
Right. And
'Cause
don't
it's
think
not.
that your state organization has everything they need and they're just these people.
Right.
The reality is your state organization is me, is Allison. We're full of just homeschool parents who are juggling
Right.
exactly what you're juggling. And so I can guarantee that there is something that you have that can be offered to your state organization that will bless not just you,
Yes.
but your entire state in defending your homeschool freedoms. So
Yes.
please do not sit back and think they will do it for us because they are us. They are you.
They
They
are we.
also changing diapers and making dinners and writing curricula
Yes.
or lesson planning.
Yes.
So please do not, I am asking you, please do not just sit back and think, this is all taken care of for us. We don't need to think about it.
No. Well, I mean, even something as writers. We all need writers to write good pieces. We all need
Video
people who
editors.
video editors. We need people that can talk. We need people who understand the policies that are going on. We need people, but we even need people who just like social media and put fun things up for us to connect with one
Mhm.
another on.
And
Um,
if all, I don't want to say if nothing else, because this is the most important thing.
yeah.
We need praying parents.
Mhm.
We need you guys praying, and I'm sure you're going to hit on that. I'm going to give it back to you to go through your list, but pray. That is our number one defense. Is we serve the God of the universe who created it all, who gave us this job, and we need to be praying.
Well, and furthermore, if God brings you to it, He'll bring you through it.
Yes,
So if He puts this before you and puts it on your heart to work, He will find a way to help you make it in your schedule. I don't
absolutely.
have a ton of time to be doing this. This actually really is inconvenient for me. It really is. But you know what?
I
We
feel like
made the
it might have been
time.
inconvenient for the founding fathers to sit in those rooms and
Have you
write
been in
our
there? Oh, they were so
documents.
hot.
Feel
Oh
like
my
that
gosh.
might not have been convenient.
No, it was not. Definitely,
Or
especially
or
when they.
Harriet Tubman, for example, might not have been convenient
Well, have you looked at what happened
or
to all those
easy.
signers of the Declaration? They were all ruined by the end of the war. I mean, no, it was not good for them and their
Yeah,
families to be signing that document. But you know what? They did it because they understood there was a bigger thing at stake. And
right.
that's what we as homeschoolers have to understand. There's something much bigger at stake here than even just homeschooling. It is flat out parental rights. As I say
Absolutely.
before, my rights to homeschool are everyone else's parental rights. If you give away
Right.
my rights to educate, you're giving away your rights to parent.
Right.
And that's the reality.
Yes.
So we can't forget that. So when
Right.
God is asking you to take part and invest, you should.
Yep. And he will give you
Because
everything you need
absolutely.
to do it because he equips us for that which he has called us. Okay, so state
Yes.
orgs.
Yes. And now, yeah, I'm getting there. So not only do you need to get connected with your state organization, but maybe you're not called to actually invest in time because you may have a job that just really won't allow that to happen. We get it. Consider financially supporting your state organization because we have costs. I mean, we have costs to be able to track legislation. And I tell you, that's not cheap. Being able to fund those things, we need to be able to fund them because doing it on our own is incredibly labor intensive. It would I mean, I already spend hours doing this stuff, but then if you added having to read every single bill that came through,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't be able to
Right.
do it. So that's something we need. That's something that is also really needed is being able to fund our state organizations. HSLDA does great work. They really do. Um, but they're not the ones on the front lines in the state house. They're not the ones that are fighting back the pernicious, insidious attacks that these entities are throwing at our legislators. They're not the ones that are there. They might show up at the very end, but they're not there all the way through having those conversations, reaching out, explaining what's happening to the fellow homeschoolers. They're not doing that. They might send out an e-blast, but really and truly, it is your state organization who is doing all of that. And it is your state volunteer who's usually putting out resources and expenses to make it happen. I mean, I I pay for my own parking when I have to go for a full day. I pay for my own lunch. I don't get anything out of it. Actually, I pay for the privilege of defending your rights.
Mm,
I'm not paid to do it.
right.
And I think we need to understand that that's different.
Yeah, these are not paid positions that we're doing.
No,
We're doing
no.
this
This
because
is
we love
volunteer.
you, we love your children, we love
Right.
your freedom, and we love the freedom that we all have. We love our parental rights. So,
Yes. And this cannot be done. HSLDA cannot fight back all of this in all 50 states. They can't do it. They will be the first ones to tell you that they can't. So what is needed to be able to fight this back effectively is having all 50 states having good, strong state organizations that are supported by their member families in each state.
mhm,
That's the only way we get through this. Is
cool.
making sure that each state has a functioning, working homeschool organization. And
Awesome.
like I said, HSLDA would 100% agree with everything I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I'm not speaking out of school on this one. Haha, out of school. I promise
Uh,
they agree. So, really and truly, when you want to praise HSLDA, please do so. But in the exact same breath, make sure you talk about Homeschool Idaho or Indiana Association of Home Educators because we're the ones that are out there. We're expending those resources, and we love you. We love your children, and we want the best for all of our families, and we have all chosen this is the best way to educate our children. So help
Mhm.
us help you
Yeah.
defend those rights. So
Awesome.
make sure we also get recognition. It's, we're not conceited or anything, but at the same time, it gets really disheartening when the work that I do and the work that Abby does always gets attributed to another entity that really didn't do it.
Mhm.
That's hard. And it's hard to be a volunteer that you're not getting paid for any of it. You're not getting any credit for it. Nobody knows that you did anything. It's hard to keep that motivation there to continue that work when no one seems to care.
Mm.
So recognize your state volunteers. That's
Yeah.
another thing you can do.
Yeah. And I want to say the recognize that there is a need for what we do. I all glory to God for what we do. And like she
Absolutely.
said, I don't need recognition, but what I would love it is that you would all recognize that there is a need to defend your freedom. Um and so don't take it for granted. Don't let what all of these frontline warriors are doing for your freedom be done in vain. Be aware that there is a need and that there are people fighting for it. So
Hmm.
so to wrap this up, because I know that moms and dads have to get moving, but to get involved, moms and dads, because you in the last 5 days you have learned that there is an opposition to what we do. And there always will be when you do the good and the right thing. So let
Absolutely.
that almost be an encouragement to you. If there was no opposition, you might wonder if what you're doing is good. So there is an opposition. Take heart, be encouraged that the God of the universe, the God that created your children and placed them in your home, is in control of all things. But also know that you can't sit back and just assume that your freedoms will not be taken. You need to be active. You need to step to the front lines and get involved. And to recap, the ways to do that would be: one, do not be complacent. Unite, be united. Do not let the enemy divide homeschoolers. We are all going for one ultimate goal, and that is our homeschool freedoms. Know what those freedoms are and where they came from. That is the backbone. That is going to be what keeps you on the course, is knowing what those freedoms are. Um, do what you do with excellence. There's only two things you have to do: have literate children and children that what did you
Self-sufficient.
self-sufficient children.
Mhm.
Do what you do, homeschool families, and do it with excellence so that when people look at what you're doing, there is an admiration there, that there is no question that you're doing a good job at what you're doing. Uh, Also, Allison mentioned follow your state laws. Can't follow them if you don't know what they are. So you need to know what your state laws are. And I also need to let you know that the reason the state laws are what they are is because you have an entity behind you that is involved in those state laws. Your state homeschool organization is right there as those are being
Mhm.
set. They're paying attention to every law that is out there. So get involved. I also want to add, make known what you're doing. When we read this article and other attacks against homeschooling, they're saying things that are just blatantly not true about what homeschool families are and what we're doing. And people may hear that and they may believe it if they don't see something different. So, you know what? Show what you're doing. Share on social media the incredible things that your children are doing. Get involved in your communities. Be a voice, be active out there so that when someone sees the amazing things that are happening, that's a homeschool family. That doesn't match up with these bogus articles that we're reading on the side. So make known what you're doing. Do it with excellence and don't be afraid to be seen in what you're doing. What you're doing is a good thing. Um, we already talked about it. Stop doubting yourself. Moms and
Mhm.
dads, what you're doing is kingdom work. That's incredible. Don't downplay what you're doing. You are not just a mom. You are not just a homeschool mom. Like Alison said before, you are raising the future church. You are raising heads of households. You are raising future moms. Do not downplay what you're doing. Um, and lastly, get involved on the front lines. Join HSLDA. Find who your homes. If you don't know who your state organization is, that's your number one assignment after this. Get behind your state organization with your time, with your energy, with the gifts and the talents and the skills that God has given you, and with your finances. Get involved locally, get involved in your communities, find a co op or a support group, be a part of something. And above all, pray. Pray for God's protection on you, on your families, on our freedoms, so that we can do what we are called to do.
And thank the Lord for the incredible timing of everything.
Yes.
We knew this summit was coming and we thought, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, everything starts shutting down
Yes.
and kids start getting sent home. Now
Mhm.
everyone's at home. And now then this article shows up.
Yeah.
Eh,
And then
No
that
one but a
summit is
sovereign
shut down.
no one but a sovereign God could have orchestrated
Absolutely.
all those events to happen as they did. So absolutely pray for our freedom, but also, you know what? As homeschoolers, we also need to give thanks for what God did do.
Right.
And I do. And I absolutely see it as providential, and praise God, because now we can have this conversation. I can tell you, hey, this is happening. You need to be aware. Pay attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The timing has been incredible. And I'm going to read 2 Timothy 1:7. It says, God has not given us a spirit of fear and of timidity, but of power, of love, and of self discipline. So we do not need to be afraid when we read articles such as this or hear of summits such as this. Um, but we need to depend on the strength of the Lord and to stand strong. So, Alison, the information and the encouragement you have given us over the last 5 days is sure to stiffen the backbones of many. I pray that it does. It is so important that we can be informed and educated on these topics and that we can give answers when the questions come. The Lord tells us that we need to be able to give answers. So, thank you for sharing your time, your experience, your knowledge, and your Friday. You've been a blessing to many homeschool families across our nation. And parents, those that are listening and watching, stay strong. Keep doing what you're doing. Pray without ceasing. Get involved. Uh, join HSLDA. Join your state organizations, and most importantly, go and love on those kids that God has given you. Happy homeschooling, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. Thank you. Blessings, everyone. Thank you for having me. Bye.